From Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Kathrine Bullock. Our top story tonight. Progressive economists and advocates are criticizing the debt ceiling agreement reached Saturday by the White House and Republican leaders. They are concerned it will needlessly gash nutrition aid, rental assistance, and education programs. It will also make it easier for the wealthy to avoid taxes. The deal must now win the support of both chambers of Congress. It reportedly includes 2 years of caps on non-military federal spending. The deal will reportedly spare a Pentagon budget replete with staggering waste and abuse, but it would also impose new work requirements on some recipients of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP benefits. In exchange for the spending cuts and work requirements, Republican leaders have agreed to lift the debt ceiling until January 1st, 2025. President Joe Biden called the deal a compromise, which means not everyone gets what they want. Speaker McCarthy released a bill based on the debt ceiling agreement late Sunday. 20,000 Muslims from across America gathered for a Memorial Day weekend convention in Baltimore, Maryland. It was organized by the Islamic Circle of North America, or ICNA. Here's a special report about it.
Conventions are an integral part of Americana. This convention is being held on the Memorial Day weekend of 2023 in Maryland. It is perhaps the largest family convention in the USA. Women and children seem to be the majority. Lectures, prayers, shopping, and games all can be found here. It is the annual convention of the Islamic Circle of North America, called ICNA-MAS. It's in the old-time tradition of North American Christian religious gatherings, faith and fellowship, but with a twist. Instead of taking place in a rural revival tent, it's taking place in the Baltimore Convention Center. Organizers registered 20,000 attendees, but people are still coming and waiting in line to register, or roaming the convention center without registration. More than 500 vendors are selling goods and services Muslim families may not find easily in their local communities. Wherever you look, you will find busy aisles with specialty clothes, toys, and books. Clothing is especially popular here. Muslims cover themselves well, both modestly and fashionably. It's late spring with pleasant weather, but Muslims still cover with traditional simplicity, grace, and dignity. But watch out! Here comes a train with the children. Thousands of teenagers, girls and boys, fill this hall listening to popular preachers. Boys on one side and girls on the other, visible to each other but separate to foster community ties of sisterhood and brotherhood. They belong to young Muslims, the next generation of Muslims in America. The convention center is surrounded by Hilton, Sheraton, and Hyatt hotels, where attendees from across America are staying. But many prefer to eat their lunch from the local food trucks, selling halal hot dogs or Philly steak sandwiches. ICNA Relief and Helping Hand welcome attendees to the bazaar, inviting people to serve the needy at home and abroad. Zakat Foundation from Chicago pitched a tent to showcase how they've helped the Turkish people through the recent earthquake. Muslims in America donated $100 million to earthquake survivors. Relief organizations are the fastest growing sector of Muslim charities in America. The diversity of Islam in America is quite visible here. Black, white, brown, Arab, African, Pakistani, Indian, and Bangladeshi. It may also be the largest gathering of Pakistanis in America. No wonder the ambassador of Pakistan is walking around. These family conventions are a unique feature of Islam in America. This is where families come to learn, network, and shop. They meet, build family relationships, and sometimes even marry. Then they come back, returning to future conventions with their children in tow, looking for the latest in educational products for young ones. Something like Adam's World, which they themselves grew up on. Or maybe children's Islamic books to inspire young minds and young hearts.
Allah
The US Health and Human Services Department has estimated that over 15 million people nationwide could lose Medicaid coverage during the redetermination process. More than a dozen states are removing people from Medicaid. This is part of what has been called the unwinding of a pandemic-era federal policy that temporarily barred governments from kicking people off the program. These states have refused to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. Many people have lost coverage because they failed to navigate bureaucratic mazes, not because they were no longer eligible. In a bipartisan deal late last year, Congress agreed to cut off the pandemic protections. That gave states 12 months to redetermine who is eligible for the healthcare program that covers tens of millions of Americans. Amin Yilmaz Ossoy can no longer move any part of her body below her neck. This is after she was shoved into a Manhattan train last weekend. She is now listed in critical condition. Ossoy was walking on the southbound platform to work around 6 a.m. Sunday when a man came up behind her and pushed her head into the departing E-train, police said. Her husband, Ferdi Ossoy, told Anadolu Agency his wife is an award-winning artist and illustrator. The alleged perpetrator, 39-year-old Kamal Semraid, is reportedly homeless. A GoFundMe page has been set up to assist the Ossoy family. It has so far garnered nearly $235,000 in donations. 5,000 American Muslims are serving in the armed forces. Details after the break. Stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome back. About 5,000 Muslims are currently serving throughout the ranks of the US Armed Forces. During Ramadan this year, US Army Captain Malik Shakur visited soldiers at the base in Vicenza, Italy, where he shared his story of becoming an army chaplain. Shakur reveals he became homeless after he graduated from the University of Maine. After a year of living in his car, he enlisted in the army and was sent to Fort Hood, Texas. While attending basics, he met a Muslim chaplain who then became his mentor as they bonded over similar life experiences. Shakur now mentors soldiers of all faiths, many of whom say they have never met a Muslim chaplain. New York State is requiring all certifiers and manufacturers of kosher or halal foods to register with the Agriculture Department. New York State Agriculture Commissioner Richard A. Ball has announced that the department has updated its online kosher and halal food registry. It allows entities that certified food as kosher or halal to register with the department as mandated. The registry also allows consumers to search for kosher or halal foods in the state. Food businesses that manufacture, produce, sell, or distribute food products labeled as halal or kosher are required to register with the NYS Department of Agriculture and Markets. Individuals or organizations that provide certification services, including halal and kosher foods, are also required to register with the department. During routine food safety inspections, the department verifies the compliance with New York's Kosher Law Protection Act of 2004 and New York State's Halal Food Protection Act of 2005. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has won the country's runoff election with over 52% of the votes and was declared an unofficial winner of the Turkish presidency. More than 64 million Turks at home and abroad were entitled to vote. The elections took place against a background of a cost of living crisis that saw inflation peak at 85% in October and earthquakes in February that killed more than 50,000 people. Erdogan came to power in 2003, initially as Prime Minister. Christianity Today reports there are fears that weeks of violence against the Christian community in the northeastern Indian state of Manipur will lead to civil war. At least 300 churches were burned or demolished and 1,000 Christian homes destroyed, the group Open Doors says. At least 70 Christians were killed in May and another 10,000 were forced to flee their homes. It is reported that Hindu nationalists are seeking out Christians to kill or forcibly convert to Hinduism. 41% of Manipur's population is Christian. India's ruling Hindutva BJP regime, however, has done nothing to stop the violence, according to reports. 10 European countries have called on Israel to halt its policy of home demolitions and confiscation of Palestinian properties in the occupied West Bank. The call came in a joint statement issued by the Office of the European Union Representative to the West Bank and Gaza and the Consulates Generals of France, Italy, Germany, and Ireland, among others. The statement called on Israel as the occupying power to halt all confiscations and demolitions and to give unimpeded access to humanitarian organizations in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. It also urged Tel Aviv to return or compensate for all humanitarian items funded by the consortium of donors. This was in reference to Israel's demolition of buildings funded by the European Union since 2015, which are estimated at over $1 million. Israel widely uses the pretext of lack of construction permits to demolish Palestinian homes, especially in Area C, which is under Israeli army control. Under the 1995 Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was divided into 3 portions, Area A, B, and C. Families of missing persons formed a human chain outside the press club in Bangladesh's capital on Saturday. This was to mark the International Week of the Disappeared observed across the world in the last week of May. Families blamed the government for picking up their loved ones in a crackdown on the opposition. In 2021, Human Rights Watch issued a report entitled "Where No Sun Can Enter: A Decade of Enforced Disappearances in Bangladesh." It noted that despite credible and consistent evidence that Bangladesh security forces routinely commit enforced disappearances, the ruling Awami League has ignored calls to address the culture of impunity. Before we end today's news, may I make a special request? It takes 55 hours of work daily to produce this news for you. It is news with a unique perspective, and you find it only here. Sound Vision is a not-for-profit organization which produces it. And just like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now or click the link below to donate. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.